This episode is in partnership with Authority Magazine. Authority Magazine, a Medium publication, is devoted to sharing in-depth and interesting interviews featuring people who are authorities in business, pop culture, wellness, social impact, and tech.
Michael Laughlin embodies the spirit of resilience in the face of unimaginable adversity. He is Canada's only above-knee amputee full-time firefighter, and his journey is one marked by astounding feats of courage and determination.
Jarrett Robertson was a semi-pro hockey player, battling debt, uncertainty, and grappling with mental and emotional damage. And yet, with sheer determination and tenacity, he was able to transform his life in a way one would never expect.
Together, they wrote Untapped 60, a powerful journey about resilience and perseverance. Their story is a testament to the strength of human connection and the unstoppable power of not giving up.
I want to introduce you to Caitlin. So Caitlin is going to be co-hosting this with me, and I thought it was so incredibly timely because Caitlin is the executive director of the Matthew Perry Foundation. She is passing along the legacy of her brother, Matthew Perry, and helping to help others with addiction. So, wow, right?
I'm really excited to meet both of you because I'm a little intimidated by how incredible the work that you're doing is, frankly. I'm not going to lie. I'd love to start by talking about the things that people are dealing with right now, and how you want to make things better for them. How you feel like you can fix the things like isolation and frustration that people are dealing with.
That's a loaded question, Caitlin.
Right?
I love it. Thanks for having us, guys, on Believe in People. This is super cool. This is super cool. Caitlin's awesome to meet you. What are we doing to help people? I'll say this for the first time. I haven't even said it to Laughlin yet because we haven't had a chance to connect in the new year. I've got this theme in my head for this year, and I know he'll love it. So, but this is the first time he's hearing it. My plan for this year for 2025 is that Untapped 60 is going. Our theme and our vision is we're going to teach people how to show up. And what do I mean by that is a client he was a guy, he went to the gym for 6 months, and his goal was he was going to the gym for 6 months and he could only stay 5 minutes. That's it. And he went to the gym and he stayed for 5 minutes. Half a set, he would leave. And it seemed so screwed up, but he went and he did it for 5 minutes. And it had nothing to do with working out. He wanted to master the art of showing up. And that resonated with me. And I was like, you know what, Laughlin, in my head, I'm like, when we get to talk, that's what we're going to do this year. We're going to help people master the art of showing up, because when you get into the story with Mike and what we're doing and how we can help people is, I don't know if it's to tell you to go to the gym. I don't know. Now, we're big on exercise for so many different reasons. But if you want to go to the gym, I'm going to help you master the art of showing up to go outside and go for a walk, eating properly, showing up to work. Why do you show up to work every day that you hate? Well, they pay me. Right. Okay. So let's talk about that. You can't quit the economy, all the things. So that's a big, big thing this year I want to delve into with Mike. And I think Untapped 60 and what we've created in the brand can absolutely help that. The online courses we've just to get people excited about learning how to be happy. What does it mean to be happy? What's breathing? What's cold tub? What's just so many little things. And that stems back from my first book that I wrote called Make It a Great Day. The subtitle, How to Feel Awesome So That You Can Help Others. And that I tell so many people, so that you can help others, took me the longest to create that title, because I was like, make it a great day. Oh, who cares? And then how to feel awesome. Well, that's pretty selfish, but I think it's necessary. But then what? Like, well, you need to feel great so that you can turn around and help somebody. Because if I wake up, and Locke and I have had this chat, if he wakes up and he just feels sick today, well, he's going to take care of himself. You have to, right? If I don't have the energy. But if he wakes up, he feels great, and his son feels sick, or his wife, or something, then he's like, okay, I got to focus on that today. So within a few minutes of waking up, I tell everyone, within 30 seconds, like, okay, I feel good, wife, kids, everyone's good. Okay, now I'm going to go to work or the gym or drink water, do something, call Laughlin, because I want to now get out there and see what I can do to help my clients or help somebody or do something that's impactful. And when I had that story of the client who just mastered the art of showing up, I'm like, Mike, this is, again, I haven't told him this. I go, that's what we want to do. That's perfect.
Okay, Mike, what do you think?
Hopefully
You
it
cannot
says
like
yes.
this idea. By the way, Mike's, because this is brand new, we're brainstorming right here, right now. You cannot not like it if you don't want to.
Yeah,
Okay.
I know. He puts me on the spot.
He's
Right?
scared. I'll call
No,
him after, be like, you better say yes.
But it
He
is
said-
recorded, just so you know.
By the way, he says we haven't connected. We literally talk every day. We just haven't talked business, okay?
Yeah.
Or what we're doing. We talk all the time. Also, I just need to throw in there that it's Jarrett's birthday today, okay? So,
Hey.
Happy birthday.
Thank
Oh
you
my
very
God,
much.
that's so
Thank you.
great.
Yeah, it's Mike's tomorrow.
No way.
Yeah, and when we go into the story, there's a pretty impactful part of his story that's going to be that resonates with our birthdays, because today is also the anniversary of something else.
Wow. Okay. Well,
Yeah,
we-
yeah,
so
yeah.
going back to the question though. So I love it. Here's why. And he knows I love it because when I was laying in a hospital bed and, the next decision was okay, I'm going to get up and get walking. I had to show up every day, just show up to physio every day. And the first day was literally sit up on the edge of my bed. I laid down for 30 days and didn't move because I had I'll get into that, but I laid in a bed for 30 days and sat up on the edge of the bed. And that day I expected to get up and walk around the floor. And the physiotherapist was like, great job today. You did a great job. You showed up, you sat up. And I was like, really, that's it? That's all I can do today? And lay back down. And they're like, trust me, tomorrow's a new day, right? And tomorrow they came in, okay, and you got to show up again. And I stood up, okay, and then the next day I took one step, and then so on and so forth until I was motoring around the floor upstairs, and bugging all the nurses and getting in the way. So it's literally, just showing up, little things like that. And that just goes right with working out, with eating properly, with, with your relationship with your wife or, your kids, being there, showing up and, going to their sports and doing all that stuff. So I think that's great. I think it blankets a lot of things, Jarrett, and you knew I'd like it. So it was
well, you know what's so here's what's so fascinating. We're going to get into your backstories because, not, I know it, Caitlin knows it, but our audience and viewers don't know it. And so what I think is so incredible and the fact that this is so magical for you too, is because we talk about happiness and resiliency and so forth that you did not have. You did not come from that place. You had tragedy upon tragedy upon tragedy, and very different in your own stories. And Mike, I want to start with you, and then Jarrett, please, I want to hear your story because we did a little intro and talked about firefighter and pro athlete, and just and the fact that there's so many similarities too. Let's get into that, but the fact that the power is in the struggle. The power is in your like rock bottom, experiences that make this so unique with Untapped 60. Mike, tell us your story.
Oh.
Okay. So, I'll start it back in 2007. So I grew up on a farm. I drove 4-wheelers and dirt bikes and snowmobiles and anything that had an engine and went fast. I was a real farm kid, right? And just wanted to, do all the fun country boy stuff. So fast forward to 2007, I was already a firefighter. I've been a firefighter full time for about 3 years by then. And so I was out snowmobiling. So I went out snowmobiling with some friends and we went out that night. And actually one of my friends went through the ice with his snowmobile and I should have went home after that happened. But, we got him out of the water, got him back home, and I wanted to go for one more little ride, right? So I talked one of the other guys into going for a ride, but it was snowing at that time. And when I say snowing, it was snowing like sideways, blowing pretty blizzard conditions, right? And it was about -20. But when you're snowmobiling, you're all bundled up and you're having fun. So we go out ripping across this lake. It's Lobra Lake. It's north of Kingston. And we're going across the lake and I'm following this guy. And so I could just see his tail light about 10 feet ahead of me. And I was like, if I lose his tail light out here, I could get lost and drive around in circles till I run out of gas and then freeze to death out here. So I can't lose his tail light because he knows where he's going. He's from this area and I don't have a clue where I am. So I'm catching up to his tail light, and I keep speeding up, catching his tail light, and I got his tail light, and then I'd lose it, and then I'd speed up again and catch his tail light, and I was like, I got to stay on it, and then I lost it again, and then so I was like, okay, just speed up, I'll catch up to him again. I'm speeding up to the point where I'm doing about 70 miles an hour. I was flying across this lake, and I don't know if you guys know snowmobiles, but you can't, when it's nice out, you can't see 10 feet ahead of you when you're going that fast. And it was a blizzard. So I saw nothing, and I'm expecting to see this tail light. I'm driving along, and then all of a sudden I see an island about 10 feet in front of me. So it's like a rock ledge, and I let go of the handlebars, and I went, I'm dead. And then I sat up, went, oh my God, I'm alive. And I looked down, and my left leg is snapped off at the femur, and I can feel it like grossly deformed at the femur. My leg's going out sideways. I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And so I reach into my phone, my pocket, and I grab my phone, and it was the old flip phones back then in 07. I flip it open, I dial 911, I push send, and the phone dies. And I'm like, oh no, what am I gonna do? So I throw the phone, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? So every once in a while, there's a little break in the snow. I could see a cottage on the island that I'd hit. And I'm thinking to myself, and I'm kind of did an inventory of what I had on me, and I had a lighter. So I get this big idea, being a firefighter, I'm gonna crawl to this cottage, and I'm gonna light it on fire, because I just need people to find me. I'm dying. And so great idea, right? I'm gonna crawl to this cottage, light it on fire. The flames will be 100 feet in the air. The firefighters will all come out and find me. So I'm crawling. So I start crawling, and I remember crawling and like pulling my leg with me, crawling. I could feel it separating. I was in so much pain. And at about 5 minutes into the crawling, I just laid down, and I said, just die. Just get it over with and die. I don't want to be in this much pain anymore. I'm not going to make it through this. And so things started going through my head, like, I can't do this to my parents. I can't do this to my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister. I'm not going to die out here like this. I can't do that to them. So it gave me a little motivation, and I started crawling again. So I started crawling, pulling my leg, crawling, and I got about 10 more minutes of crawling in. And then I laid down a second time and said, just die. And I remember just laying in the snow and just trying to die, right? And then I'm like, no, you've worked too hard. You're this tough firefighter. Everyone knows you as this tough hockey player. They're all going to think that you went out, being a big wuss. So you can't do this. It's funny things go through your head when the chips are down. But it gave me motivation again, and I got crawling again. And then by that time I heard a snowmobile come back. So the guy had got to the other side, realized I wasn't there, and went searching for me.
Wow.
Found my snowmobile all over the ice, and we started hollering back and forth. And then he gets over top of me, and he's white as a ghost. He's like, what do I do? What do I do? I'm like, get me on your snowmobile and drive me in. And he eventually got me on the snowmobile and drove me. And I remember feeling every single bump on the way in. My femur was cracking together like this. And we get to the other side, and he goes, it's okay. I got someone waiting to drive you to the hospital. And, hindsight, you should have tried to phone the ambulance again, but I didn't. I'm like, I'm in control of this, right? And so we get to the other side, and we got to remember we're out in the country. And so we get to the other side, and he's like, I got a car waiting. It's okay. And what's waiting for me is this big jacked up monster truck. And so they're trying to push me up into this monster truck, and my leg's coming apart, and I'm screaming and I'm swinging. And so they finally give up, and they put me back on the ground, and they're like, hold on. So we actually made another phone call, and my girlfriend at the time we had woke her up, and she came and got me. And so drove me into the hospital. And I remember getting to emerge, and a nurse came out with a wheelchair and opened the door and looked at me and went, oh my God, and went back and got a stretcher with 6 people. And so I was like, oh, wow, I must look great, right? They just from his reaction, I wasn't looking good. So they wheel me in. It's just like bees buzzing, right? They're cutting your clothes off, and they're doing all this stuff and hooking you up to IVs and painkillers and all the stuff. And I remember, and this is a funny part of the story, and I like to tell it. So I'm laying ready to go into surgery, and I got one of those like one-way gowns on, and I'm laying there, and I'm all hooked up to all these tubes, and the little old nurse comes in. She goes, I'm going to put in your catheter. And so 26-year-old me didn't know what a catheter was. So I'm like, yeah, whatever, right? And so she pulls the gown back, grabs me, and goes to put this in, and I push her, and I'm like, you're not doing that. And she falls back onto the floor, and she gets up, And she just kind of smiles at me and just kind of dusts herself off and walks out. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. You're not doing that, right? 2 minutes later, she walks in with 4 great big porters and they pin me down. And she's like, and just puts the catheter in, smiling as I scream. So like the entire time she knew she was going to get the last laugh. And so that was, my catheter experience. But I went into surgery and I woke up the next morning. And so I woke up, I looked down, my leg's in a huge cast. I shattered 6 inches of my femur, broke my kneecap off, broke my tibia, fibia, and I had this big cast on my arm. And I was like, there's nothing wrong with my arm. Why would I have a cast on my arm? I was crawling, I was pulling myself up into a truck, I was doing all these things. There's nothing wrong with my arm. And the doctor's like, oh yes, there was. He goes, you had a compound fracture, your ulna was sticking out through the skin. And so I was so focused on my leg and the pain I was in that I didn't even notice my arm was broke off. So I have a plate in my arm. I have a rod for a femur. I have 33 pins and screws holding my knee and all the other stuff together. And so they put me all back together. And believe it or not, 8 months later, I was back firefighting, playing hockey, doing everything. And that all came from, showing up. So like they told me I could do, 5 pull-ups in between physio. Well, I do 500. And they said, do 10 push-ups. I do 1,000. And so like, I just pushed the limits. I wanted to get back. I was determined that I was going to be a firefighter still. And to be honest, if you didn't look at my scars, you never would have known I was ever in an accident. I went back to normal life and very quickly, but it's all right there. It's all there if you need it, right? And I remember my physiotherapist said, if you do anything this whole time, don't limp. Limping is in your head. Limping is your brain compensating for a sore spot. And so I was like, really? She goes, unless your leg is 2 inches shorter than the other, you shouldn't limp, right? And I said, okay, I'm going to concentrate on that. And I remember I did every physiotherapy session. I concentrated on not limping, and I never limped ever. With all the injuries I had to that leg, never limped one limp. And that's all. So that just goes to show you the power of the brain, right?
Yeah,
And
for
how
sure.
it's, that controls everything you do. So, so I recovered from that and fast forward. So while I was actually in the gym training, getting in shape, and I always stayed in shape, I met a girl that I went to high school with, and her name was Jen Leader. And we hit it off right away. She had some troubles in her past, but she became a yoga instructor and was like one of Kingston's best yoga teachers, and beautiful girl. And so we hit it off and became fast friends and then lovers and all that. So 4 years later, it's 2011. And every year, right now, January 9th and 10th, Jarrett and I go out for our birthdays. And so it wasn't any different. We were going to go out for our birthday on January 9th. And Jen was supposed to come, but she decided not to. And so I just said, are you sure? She's like, yeah, I'm not feeling it. You guys go out and have fun, do your thing, right? And so we did. We went out and we had our birthday celebrations, and came home the next morning. I stayed out at a friend's, and I got dropped off at about 10 o'clock the next morning, and waved goodbye to the people who dropped me off, and walked in the house, and she was laying on the couch. And so I go over to the sink and I did a couple things in the kitchen. I said, hey, it's 10 o'clock. You're still sleeping. Wow. Good for you. Right. And then she, a couple minutes went by, and I was like, are you not going to get up and like say hi? Kind of talking to her. And she still didn't move. And I was like, and then sorry, the hair just started standing up on my neck, and I was like, something's wrong. And I started walking over, and I got about halfway to her, and I knew immediately. Being a firefighter, I've seen it so many times, and she was dead. She was dead on the couch, and she had committed suicide that night, and stayed home purposely to do it. And there was nothing I could do. I phoned 911, screamed into the phone for a while. I laid with her body for the 17 minutes that it took for someone to get there. And they got there and they tried to work on her a little bit. And that's just what we do. When we get there, we try to do something, even though we know there's sometimes nothing you can do. And then they called it, and so she was gone. And obviously at that time I didn't handle it very well. I blame myself. I should have stayed home. I should have known. So Jen had been abused when she was a teenager. She had been held captive by an abusive boyfriend and tortured and all the bad stuff you can imagine. This man went to jail for a long time for doing it to a lot of girls, and so she had some, bad trauma. She went down the road of drug use and was living on the streets and did a whole bunch of. It just went down this road that you would never have thought she would have recovered from. And when I met her, she had escaped all of that and changed her whole life around. And so to the point, like we owned a yoga studio called Life Yoga, our very own yoga studio, and like we had a good life. Full-time firefighter. We lived on Dog Lake on a really nice lake in Kingston, and so it was unimaginable that she did this. And so, but once you start to realize, what suicide is, if we could stop suicide, we would 100% of the time. Right. So that's why they get away with it, because they're so good at covering it and not telling you. And at the time I didn't know that. So we're gonna backtrack a little bit to 2007. When I got out of the hospital, I had been prescribed a lot of painkillers. That was before this epidemic of painkillers. The doctors were just giving you whatever you wanted, basically. And so I was on a lot of them, and I took them for a few years, and to the point where the doctor was like, okay, now you have to be off them. And they didn't give them to me, and I got sick. And then I realized I had to get help. So I went and got help, got off them. Well, when Jen died, I relapsed on painkillers because I didn't, being the guy I just was trying to be that macho guy. I don't need help. I'll do it myself. And I couldn't do it myself. And the only way to do it was to mask it with these painkillers. I knew one thing. I was never a drinker or anything like that, but I knew that these painkillers would make me feel like I would forget everything. So relapse on painkillers to the point where, I was getting pretty bad, and I was buying them illegally. And I was still maintaining a job. Like I was still full-time firefighting, doing my job properly. Nothing went wrong at work or anything. But so I got arrested. I was buying some illegal painkillers, and the house was being watched, and I got arrested. And so now I'm Mike Laughlin, supposed to be the firefighter, but now I'm the guy that his girlfriend killed herself in your house. I'm now labeled as a drug user, drug dealer, because at the time I got charged with trafficking, which was untrue. I was buying them for myself. But so I'm like, I just went from up here to the bottom real quick. Right. And I was like, what am I going to do? And so luckily, without my friends and family, I probably wouldn't be here. And so they kind of had like a little intervention with me and was like, it's time to change things. Right. And so luckily, like I said, I had that support. I went and got help for the drugs, went into a program, and started turning my life around and just doing all the right things. And so just trying to put some time between all the bad stuff that happened and where I was now. So, and I did. And that's when we get to 2016. So life's life's good. I hadn't got back in a real good relationship yet. I'd been looking for Jen again is what I was doing. I was trying to find her again. And it wasn't, that won't happen. And I know that now, but, and so I wasn't in a serious relationship, but I was dating and stuff. And I was living out at a friend's house in, just north of Lober Lake, where, just believe it or not, 2 kilometers from where the snowmobile accident was. And I'd always driven motorcycles, so I grew up on dirt bikes and all that stuff. As soon as I could have a motorcycle, I was on a motorcycle. And so I was out for a motorcycle ride on my Harley. And it was 4 PM, and I go out for a ride, and I'm only doing about 60 kilometers an hour, and I'm touring along, and out of the corner of my eye, I see this flash. And it's a deer coming out of the ditch, and it hits me. It runs right into the side of me. So it hits me, and I do a speed wobble, and I don't go down. And I'm like, I'm trying to get a hold of the bike, and I got it. And I look up, and there's a 90-degree turn in the road, and I hadn't slowed down. So I tried to turn as hard as I could. So you counter steer, and I turned as hard as I could, and to the point where the peg of my bike was scraping on the ground, and I'm almost making the corner. I think I've got it, and then my back tire hits the shoulder of the road, the loose gravel, and boom, the bike just shoots out from under me. So being a firefighter and seeing this, I've seen this before in accidents. Don't hit your head. You hit your head, your chances aren't good. You're going to die, or you're going to be, or you're going to live and be in bad shape. So I tried to ride it out of my butt. So I bounced off the road on my butt a couple times, and I go shoot down into the ditch, and my feet were ahead of me, and I watched myself run right into like a bunch of, almost like a rock cut, a big rock knoll, and I ran into it with my feet, and my right leg snapped right off, and was right off, like snapped right off, and the bike came in behind me, hit the rock, and landed on top of me.
Whoa.
And so here I am again, and I remember thinking, oh my God, I did it again. I've got to fight again for my life. And so immediately I go into, firefighter mode, and I'm like, what do I do? And you know how they say, when the chips are down, these people get this superhuman strength. Like, I'm a pretty strong guy, always have been, but this motorcycle is 800 pounds. And I remember taking and it was sizzling on me because the hot muffler. And I remember taking the motorcycle and throwing it up off me. And it'll be more, it'll be more impressive when you hear what happened to me, but I throw the bike off me, and I look down, and my leg is ripped off at the knee, holding on by some skin. And I can see a white ball, and I'm like, what's that white ball? And it was actually my ankle ball. So my foot was ripped off. And I'm like, this is just like a horror movie. What do I do? What do I do? So I go right into action, like I said, and I pull my belt out of my pants. I tourniquet my leg as tight as I can. Now, being a firefighter, I know I'm not going to get a perfect tourniquet, but I can stop the blood a little bit. And I get the tourniquet on as tight as I can. I wrap it. I pull my phone out of my pocket, and I remember like shaking so bad. And I'm like, I might get one shot at this before I pass out. And so instead of dialing 911, because they transfer you a couple times, I dialed my fire department, the actual, the actual fire department, right? So I got all the numbers in and pushed send. Got on the first try, and they answer and it comes up on their screen, Mike Laughlin, right? So they're like, oh, hey, Mike, how's it going?
Yeah, not so good.
Yeah. I'm dying in a ditch. I'm on North Shore Road. It's Mike Laughlin. Come get me, right? So I'm in South Frontenac. I remember explaining everything to them because I knew at any time maybe I was going to pass out or die, right? So just give them the information where you are and what's going on, and they'll start coming. So they kept me on the phone, or she kept me on the phone, and I'm like, what's next? What's next? And so while I was down in the ditch, a car had drove by and didn't see me. So I was like, that could have been my savior. I don't know. So I started looking around. I took my helmet off. I threw it up on the road. I grabbed a couple bike parts that had broken off the bike, and I was throwing them up on the road. And then, so the next car that came along, it stopped. And Jarrett knows this part gets me every time, but this older lady gets out of her car, and she walks to the edge of the road, and she looks down at me, and she starts climbing down into the ditch. And she comes up behind me and puts her arms around me.
Wow. Wow.
And she said, you're going to be okay.
Wow.
And honestly, it's just what I needed. I needed to not be alone. And so like, she gave me that extra bit of willpower, I'm going to make it. Right. And, this day and age, people walk by people, they walk by over top of people on the street. They'll drive around a car accident just to get away from it, because they want nothing to do with it. This lady stopped, probably, like, I thought maybe she's gonna look at me and be like, oh my God, right, and get out of here. She came down and she did what she did, and it made a difference. So that's something Jared and I tell everyone, is just never miss an opportunity to help someone, right? And so my mom actually tracked her down, and she was a retired school teacher.
Wow.
And we were expecting her to be like a nurse or something, like someone that's seen this stuff before, right? And it's like a retired school teacher, and we were able to thank her, and which was great. So then I started hearing sirens. So sirens are coming. I'm gonna get saved. And the first to show up was a fire truck. I knew the first firefighter that was there. It's a volunteer area. I knew him, and I knew I was in good hands. And I kind of at that point just kind of let go and let them do their thing. And they put me on a board, packaged me up. They cut all your clothes off. I remember them putting me on the board and then moving my leg second, and I didn't feel it. I didn't feel that leg move in. So I was like, it's not part of me right now. And so they packaged me up. The chief of South Frontenac was my captain, my old captain from Kingston. He rode in the ambulance with me, Chief Cheeseborough, all the way into town. And so they were giving me painkillers in the ambulance. And so they give me as much painkillers as they can, and it's not doing anything. And the paramedic, I remember, is like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I don't know what we're doing wrong. It's not doing anything. I'm like, well, I've been here before. I've been addicted to these. He's like, oh no. He goes, I can't do anything for you. There's no more I can do to leave the hospital. So it was a painful ride, 25-minute ride to the hospital. I remember when we got there, the doors open to the ambulance, they get me out, and I kind of lift my head a little bit to look, and there's a tunnel of the fire chief, the deputies, firefighters, anybody that was. So what I didn't know is when I was on that phone to dispatch, everyone in the building had come and was listening to me basically say goodbye, tell my family I love them, I'm dying, and they were all listening and crying and doing their thing as well. That I get, I didn't hear that story till later. And so they raced down to the hospital and like made this, and that's the brotherhood, the sisterhood of the fire department. They race down and they make this tunnel. And they're wheeling me through the tunnel. And then the fire chief leans over to Chief Armstrong and he says to me, Mike, no matter what, you're going to have a job. And I needed that. I needed that because Mike Laughlin at that time didn't have anything to identify as but a firefighter. I had rebuilt my entire life to get back to who I was, and that's Mike Laughlin, the firefighter, right? So that was huge for him to say that, and then I could just focus on the next, getting better basically. So they wheel me in. Oh, it was like a beehive. They were just lots going on because I'm in bad shape. They give me a bunch of painkillers, the highest dose of everything they can give me. It's not doing anything.
Hey, Mike, is it the same leg, by the way? Was it the same leg you hurt before? No, wow. Of course not, right?
Of course not. I couldn't lose the leg that was already ruined. So the doctor leans over at one point and was like, Mike, we're going to put you in a coma. And I remember begging him, please put me in a coma, please put me in a coma. Because at this point, I was at about 2 hours of, a 10 out of 10 suffering, 10 out of 10 pain, and trying to manage it the whole time and be tough about it. And like in the ditch, I remember when I say I took every bit of human being I am to stay conscious and to stay in control, it did. And I had to consciously fight that the whole time. So not only make the decisions I was making, but fight the fact that I was in so much pain, I just wanted to lay down and die. And so until you're in that position, you don't really understand, but you're just it's every bit of human being you have. That's the only way I can explain it. And so I just wanted relief. And so they put me in a coma, and I was in a coma for 8 days.
Wow.
And I went through many surgeries, and I was there's a video of me. I'm swollen like a balloon. I just look like a disaster. And anyways, after 8 days, I opened my eyes and I woke up. And I woke up, and my mom was right there. And she's like, Mike, you're alive. And at the time, when I was in a coma, I thought I died. So strange things go on in your head when you're in a coma. Yeah, you won't know unless you're there. But I thought that was me. I thought, okay, I gave it my shot. I didn't make it. And I thought there was stuff going on in my head that was like, I'm shutting down. It's over. And it was like a computer shutting down almost, is how I can explain it. And then I woke up and I was like, the relief of my mom saying you're alive. And then she goes, but don't move, you're in bad shape. And so I realized that I was strapped to the bed and I had this big neck brace on. And she's like, you broke your neck in 2 spots. You broke your back in 3 spots, and your leg was ripped off, but they put it back on. And there was this big halo over my leg, right? And they had put it all back together. And it looked like Frankenstein, right? There was no skin on it, and it was all pinned together and put together. And so I had no idea this whole time I broke my neck and back in 5 different places. And I was throwing stuff up on the right. I was doing all this stuff, and so lucky, right, to not be paralyzed or dead. So that's how close it was from bouncing off the road, right? So here we go. And so they wheel me into ICU, and there I am. I have to lay on my back for 30 days to start healing. And when I say, it's very humiliating, because when you're in there, you're a baby. You have to do number 2 in your bed, laying down. You can't do anything for yourself. You can't sip on a water. You're at the mercy of your nurses. And I can't thank them enough. It's just, it's crazy what they do. They don't make near enough money. I'm here because of them. And here's the healing process. So actually 3 days after that I woke up, the doctor came back in and they had been testing my leg to see if it was getting blood flow, to see if they could make this leg reattach to my body. And it was actually like killing me. It was draining me. I was turning gray. I was very sick. And they're like, listen, we got to amputate your leg. And like, I kind of knew this. I knew this all along. I knew it wasn't going to make it. But once they told me, yes, we're amputating your leg tomorrow, it kind of hits you. And so we grieved. I grieved with my family for about an hour. And then after about an hour, I'm just like, okay, screw this. I'm like, Dad, grab that iPad that's sitting right there. And he's like, yeah, okay. I go, look up what the best prosthetic leg in the world is, because I need it and I need it right now. And so like it was almost like a switch. I'm just like, okay, I'm accepting what's happening. Now it's time to get back in the game. And just like I did the first time with the snowmobile, what do I got to do? Tell me what I got to do and I'll do more. And so that's where it began. And so once I started healing and I was able to start, sit up and all that kind of stuff, and you start moving around. And then as soon as I could get a prosthetic leg, I did. And so, yeah, it was just,
You're the epitome of showing up.
I think that, it's perfect.
And I mean, and there's a reason too, Mike. There's a reason why, and I know that. I mean, this is. I mean, there's so much to talk about, but that's the reason why you and Jarrett met. Because first of all, you're on Earth, no question. You have a purpose. There's no. I mean, come on. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's so powerful, your story, and painful. And then, when did you meet Jarrett? How did Jarrett come into play?
Oh, so Jarrett and I have known each other since we were 10 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, we played hockey against each other. So Jarrett was arguably the best player in Ontario, maybe Canada at the time.
Cool.
He was at a very young age, he was a very good hockey player. And he played for Kingston Township and I played for Gananoque. And so we played against each other and he would score like 5 goals against us every game. And I was a pretty good player. I was like second best on my team and he was first in, in the province. So we hated playing him because we knew we were going to lose to not only their team, but basically to Jarrett. But then came Pee Wee.
It's like Jarrett.
Yeah,
it's like Newman. He's like Newman.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So then came Pee Wee, and Pee Wee is when all the best players from all those teams come together as an all-star team and make a AAA team. And so it's like it's like an all-star team. So when we came together, we both made the AAA team, and that's we sat beside each other in the dressing room and became fast friends, and the rest is history. We've been best friends ever since.
And then, so can I ask you, and I'm so sorry to interrupt, Jarrett. So was it because you're the, I mean, your story, and I know it's just remarkable in the fact that you had struggles and you needed to mentally prepare yourself for your journey, and you've had massive ups and downs. And and emotional is just as much as powerful as physical. And so were you the one that sort of helped support and or suggest the Untapped 60 or the two of you with Mike? How did it kind of like happen, Jarrett?
Yeah. So Mike and I have just always chatted, as he said. So the Make It a Great Day part of me, that brand or that motto came into play about 2016 or 2015 with me. And so I'm in financial services. I'm a financial planner. And I have a company and I do wealth and estate planning and I have a company out here and we work all over Ontario. So I've always incorporated Make It a Great Day. During the pandemic, I wrote my first book and it came, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to write a book and I put together this book, Make It a Great Day. But Mike and I had always chatted, and I have a few other stories of friends from the past who have said things to me after 15 years of seeing them when I played junior hockey in Cornwall. I only stayed. I would have quit if it wasn't for you. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Would have quit if it wasn't for me? What did I do? They're like, because of who you were in the dressing room. And I'm like, what? So it was so cool to hear that from some of these buddies. But Mike has admitted, and he's like, when I'm having a bad day, I'll call Jarrett. I'm like, okay, sure. We just call anyways. And he's got some other good friends, really close friends. I have some other really close friends. We all talk. so when Mike was having a bad day, he would call me, and it's not like I go into some therapy mode or whatever. I'm like, oh, hey man, I'm having a bad day. Okay, what's going on? I
So
might be
you
having
being you.
I might be having a bad day too, so this might not go anywhere. We might just scream at each other or something. Like, but he would lean on me for that stuff. So that make it a great day part. So, and I've been doing some talks through my financial services. So you guys are both Canada. So I worked with Canada Life, I worked with Freedom 55, those companies, right? And so I was doing some talks at our big conferences and within financial centers. And I always knew that the Make It a Great Day and my story, I know you keep asking about it, which I appreciate. It's not remarkable, right? There's a story, but it's
You
nothing.
are remarkable, Jarrett. I'm
Thank
sorry,
you.
you are remarkable.
Thank you. So I was given these stories. I said, you know what? This isn't a keynote. It's an uplifting. It's an opener. It's an intro. It's fun, but not everyone loves rainbows and butterflies all the time. It seems unrealistic a little bit, and I appreciate that. I'm like, look, not every day is the best day on planet Earth. Some days are tough, but what I've learned is now I have the tools and the people and the resource where I'm like, today's a crappy day. I'm going to go and make it a great day. So when Mike said, hey, let's make this bigger, I said, okay. So, and I openly say on every podcast, every interview, I go, so I'm going to ride your coattails of what you're telling me because it's your story. I go, we'll do this and we can put together a presentation. I would love to do an intro. I'm still not good at introducing him. I well up. It's a tough moment in the presentation.
But
So
that's what makes it so great,
yeah,
Jarrett.
I appreciate it. So the Untapped 60, I said, well, what's this going to be? It's not Mike. It's not Make It a Great Day. We got to bring out something. So I heard this theory one time, and I still believe it to be true, especially when you hear his story, is that when we're at our absolute rock bottom, financially, spiritually, emotionally, physically, all the play, when you're just like, I'm done, I'm out, right? Whatever people's rock bottom is it the streets? Were you the CEO of a conglomerate and you got fired, right? It's pretty open news. Is it Trudeau? Now you're stepping down. Are you at rock bottom? Like what's rock bottom? Everyone's different. When you're at your absolute worst, it's said, and I believe it, you're at about 40% of your human potential. And I would say there's probably 10, 15, 20%, I don't know that number, that's saved for like life-saving experiences. If I have to lift a car off my kids or run through a fire, Mike's got a pretty cool story of a mom who literally went into a fire with her kids. That stuff I think is saved for uber amounts of adrenaline to go into a different, step outside your body sort of thing. So the untapped 60 is that untapped 60% of our potential. And I'm not saying we're here to say, Amy, Caitlin, we're going to help you tap into the full 60%. No. What if, Caitlin, I could help you tap into 5% more? What does that look like? If you're a company, I'll just pick some conglomerate company, Amazon, and the top 20%
Small
of
company.
small. Top 20% of your employees are people who are doing the job. They don't need motivating, but you support them. They're going to work. They come to work. Your top echelon. You have the bottom 20% who are probably rolling over. You would love to keep them, but it might not be their place. When you get into big companies, it happens, right? And then that middle 60% of your corporation, geez, what if I could tap into that and help them move a few into that top 20? What's that do for our bottom line, our shareholders, all that stuff? So that's kind of the corporate side of it. But really, the movement or the idea was for individuals, whether or not you are an employee at this company or a Fortune 500 CEO. Everyone could probably use a little bit. How do I get better? Or what can I do to be better? And the littlest things we do, Laughlin and I talk about it, is helping you tap into that potential to whatever it is, whatever you want to do. So that's where the untapped 60 came from. It's just the 60% of our untapped human potential. And I mean, a story that most people can relate to is when you go through the traumas like that, it's crazy. I never want to know what it's like to be in a coma. I never want to be in a ditch with my leg ripped off. I don't want to find out if I'm tough enough for that or crazy enough or smart enough. I don't know but if I'm in the gym with Mike and we're working out and we're doing bench press, 200 pounds, and I do 10, I'm like, oh, I'm done. He goes and does 11. I'm like, Wait a second. I'm going to go. Now all of a sudden I do 11. He goes, oh, are we going to do this? Let's do it. He does 15. And I'm like, whoa. And how did that happen? How did I go from dying at 10 to like, at 15, I can do more? And what does that mean? How can we help people tap into that? Is it work? Is it working longer? There's a million different strategies out there of being able to tap into your full human potential. So I brought that forward with them. We came up with the brand and the logo and the design, and we loved it out of the gate. And I think a lot of the ideas, like the 2025, the motto or the vision of being, we're going to help people show up. I'd say a lot of things I'll come up with, and I know I'm like, Laughlin's going to love this. He's going to love it. And I'll bring it to him. There's been the odd idea I bring to him. He's like, no. And I'm like, okay, well, let me tell it to you differently, and I'll trick you into liking it. So then he likes it. So there's different ways. Because I know I don't want to say we know how each other think, but we're cut from the same cloth. We come from the same background. Our families were hardworking people. Both of our parents divorced at a young age, so we had that. Like, we just have a lot of similarities, and it's worked.
We're always honest with each other too.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So very, very quickly, just for anybody who's only listening to this, both of these guys are telling the stories about the things that they've done with like animation. They're happy. They're smiling. I mean, I'm here thinking, what are you, some kind of tough guy? You're doing all that, great. But the one time that I saw Mike like feel it, like actually, move outside of that, like, telling this in the bravest way I've ever seen in my whole life, is when you were talking about, being in that ditch and that school teacher coming to you, and it was like, you just in that moment, you needed to not be alone. That's what you needed in that minute. So I'm wondering, with Untapped 60, how much do other people play into bringing in that extraordinary out in people, finding that, that 60% in people? How much is it human connection?
Oh, I don't know if I have an answer for that percentage, but that is certainly one thing. So I've said to Laughlin, thank you for that question. It's the best. We want to be that for people. But listen, if 20 people we have connections with and we start to text and call and we're available, fantastic. I don't know how big this is going to get. We really don't know what a month looks like from now, 6 months or 6 years. We just are taking it day by day of the book was kind of number one, was like, we got to write a book. We got to get something out there. And then the keynote presentations. And what happens from here, we don't know. Absolutely, Caitlin, we've said, call us. Text us, call us, we'll figure it out. But as you know, mathematically, that can get impossible after a while. So yes, one part of this would be, who can you call? Now, the challenge is there's people out there who have nobody. And we recognize that, right? Well, I have nobody. I'm like, okay. So I don't have the answer to that today in terms of how do you have, so we've created a group. Laughlin does this cool thing on Friday nights called Locker Talk. A lot of guys are coming to that, which is just an open, candid conversation about anything and everything. So one step at a time, I do want to make sure people have other people. And I think, so the other side of that, and hopefully that answered your question a little bit, the other side of that, going into, say, a company, and being from the Canada Life world, that's a massive company in Canada, I've met a lot of people like up the org chart. And I said to my mentor one day, I'm like, who's Jeff Bezos' person? Like, he's just expected to be the leader, right? Or the other leaders, like, who's their person? Because Mike and I, at this point, from what he's been through, what I've been through, and like, they're just humans. They have the same days, relationship, kids, things like that. Who are they turning to? And I'm not saying I'm here to and needing to work with those type of people, but in any company where there's the boss and there's 20 employees, who's going to that person saying, hey, you know what? Great job today. Well done. Have you said great job to your employees and thank them? Well, I don't thank them. They're expected. No, I think you should go and say thank you. I think that's a cool thing, right? And it's not saying you're weak or a leader. It's saying you appreciate them. And is there anyone you're talking to? Because you just told me that your daughter at high school went through this situation. You're super stressed out, but now you're coming to work and taking out your employees. Like, can we help you with that? Here's some cool things to do. We're open and honest about the fact that we're not therapists, we're not psychotherapists, all the things. We have the life experience. I tell a lot of people when it comes to the presentation or just in general, said, look, I choose every day to make it a great day and wake up and go, okay, let's do this. Not every day is great. I've got a story. I've got, familia problems. I went through some alcoholism with family stuff. A story. So you got to choose in a day. Do I want to deal with that? Or do I want to, call Laughlin, have a good time, go and see him and his kid, go out and see the chickens and just laugh and smile? Or do I want to handle this? Because some days you got to handle, not fun stuff.
So he just kind of like, I do have to finish my story because it's the best part to tell you.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
good.
yeah.
Both of you, great.
The chickens, right? That's the best part.
That's the chicken.
Kind of just cued it for me. I was like, oh, hold on now. There's more to tell. So after losing my leg, not even the best part of the story, but
You're going to tell us about the love of your life, aren't you?
Oh, it's the best.
So I became Canada's first, about a year and a half, I became Canada's first and still only above knee amputated full-time firefighter.
That's amazing.
And I just last week, I got promoted to acting captain, which is the leader of my people.
Wow.
So something I was going to do back in 2016, but I lost my leg. So it's been 8 years. It was a little 8-year pause on that. But now I'm still following my dreams. But so when I was in the hospital, okay, I was a mess, and I lived in the hospital for 2 months. I was wheeling around in a wheelchair. I looked like Joe Dirt in a wheelchair. So I had a beard, long, slick back hair. I was about 150.
Okay, so just for our listeners, Jarrett's holding up a picture of what Mike looked like when he was in a wheelchair.
So pretty. He's so pretty.
Yeah,
look
you
how
look
pretty
a little
gorgeous,
grungy.
Looks
there.
a little different than he looks now.
It's worth watching this, our audience, instead of listening to this. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
That's okay. So I had a neck brace on for 4 months. Anyways, I was just bored, and I was like, I was a single 36-year-old. And so I was like, I'm going to go see if there's any hot nurses around this hospital.
In his head, as I always said this, in his head, he's still a single 36 good looking guy in his head, right? Like his brain's like, oh, I still got it. And I'm like, just.
I know he's right. And I honestly did. Like you don't factor in the fact that you've changed so much in 2 months. But anyway, so I'm wheeling around, and I'm talking to everybody, and I'm kind of lost in the hospital. And I go by this one room, and there's a nurse bent over a patient. Nicest butt I've ever seen. And so I jam the brakes on the chair, and I stop, and I get caught basically. And so I turn in and start making small talk. And when she turns around, I was just like,
that's music playing.
Yeah, it's never happened to me in my life. I was a hockey player. I had a lot of girlfriends. I was a player basically, hockey and with women. And so I never really settled down, but like when I've never had this feeling before. And so we make small talk, and I remember I got her name, and when I got back to my room, I Facebooked her right away and was like, nice to meet you. Right. And later on, when she got done her shift, I think she said, nice to meet you, whatever. And that was it. But we were friends on Facebook now. And so fast forward a few months, and I started looking normal. I've got a leg, I'm working out, and everything's going good. And so she posted something on Facebook, and I had commented, and we started chatting. And so I'm like, you know what, screw it. And I asked her out. And so she said yes. I think it was just to humor me and, to be like, oh, good job. You're doing well for yourself compared to where you were, kind of thing. So we go for a coffee, walk back up to the car, and I did the worst thing you can possibly do ever on a date. I looked her in the eyes and I said, I want to marry you and have children. And she got in her car and left and ghosted me for 2 months.
2 months? That's
Caitlin,
hilarious.
that was great. Caitlin, that was great.
Refreshing. I have to say that is refreshing.
You guys were both like,
oh, that was great,
good.
Caitlin.
Yeah,
that was great.
So after 2 months or what, so what I hear is like, so she's waking up, thinking about this guy in this wheelchair, right? And it's like, why am I thinking about him? There's something, maybe I missed something. Maybe there was more to that. Anyway, so she messages me back and it's like, okay, I'll give you another shot kind of thing, but like pump the brakes a bit. So we go on another date and then the rest is history. We got married in 2018. We have a 4-year-old, or he just turned 5 on January 4th, 5-year-old son. I have a stepdaughter who's 14 who has Down syndrome, Kiana. And she's like the life of every party. She is awesome. And so at the time of my life, when I met Ange, she had given me an ultimatum. And when we decided like we're going to be a couple, she sat me down and said, listen, if we're going to be together, I've got this daughter who's 6 years old at the time with Down syndrome. This is a lot to take on. I understand if you don't want to do this. And she didn't understand how much I needed this. I needed responsibility and I was madly in love. And so she said, if this is going to happen, you will never do another drug and you'll never be with another woman. You understand that, right? And that is the day I stopped. And so I'm in my 9th year of sobriety, like nothing. And obviously loyal as can be to one woman. And still to this day, like she's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. And so like, it was just, I took a shot at my very worst in that wheelchair with nothing. I didn't even know if I was going to have a job to go back to. I was completely broken. I had no leg, didn't know if I was going to walk still. Like at my very worst, I took a shot. And that's kind of advice I give people too at the, when we do our keynotes and stuff, is never miss an opportunity to take a shot.
Exactly.
You don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Look at me. If I had not stopped and made small talk with her that day, I would not be living the life I'm living. And I'm literally living my best life. I wouldn't change anything. I love it. And we have chickens in the back, Jarrett. We live on a great big farm and we have a beautiful house and just life is so good. And
That's amazing. And, and I think we're not even going to ask the question because we know you believe in people. I think that's why you should believe in people. And I just want to say, because I know our time is up, but Jarrett and Mike, you are on this planet for a reason. The two of you, the reason why you met, the reason why you've had the ups and downs that you've had. I mean, life-changing, almost dying, emotional struggles. And so the two of you with Untapped 60 is that you are building out this community. It isn't you're starting it, okay, and you're talking about the 5-minute steps, which is true because 5 minutes then turns into something else. It's that mental routine and that commitment to yourself, because we all deserve that commitment to ourselves. And so by you doing this, and I see this now happily more than ever, particularly with men, because women are supported. And I don't know if your focus is male necessarily, but it just feels that, men need a lot of support, and because of the masculinity and the challenge to be vulnerable, this more than ever with Untapped 60 is more prevalent. And so that if you're creating a community with one step at a time, then you're going to build out your community so that you have that supportive, hey, it's maybe Jarrett, Mike, you've inspired somebody that in turn within your group that you're building will inspire someone else, and so on and so forth. Like it's unbelievable.
I thank you so much, and that's exactly you've hit the nail on the head with us. Just it's one person at a time. If we only help one person, that's fantastic. And I'll one of the things I've been super good at, I think, with actually another buddy of mine, is I've always been the one who's been, I don't want to say vulnerable, but the one to say, hey, love you, buddy, miss you. Hey, I'm calling you. I don't know. I miss you, man. I'm being honest. I miss you. It's been 6 months. What's up? And now that we're older, Kingston, where he is, and a bunch of buddies up here too, Kingston. So firefighters, cops, corrections in Kingston, everywhere. I might be the first one with all buddies. I'll sit and say, hey, what's going on? And Laughlin tells me stories sometimes where a fire story, and I go, don't ever tell me that detail again. Zip it. Yeah, I don't want to hear it. I can't unhear it. But then I'm like, are you good, man? Oh, I'm used to it. I'm like, yeah, but you aren't, right? Like CPR, when he talks about that stuff and skin falling off people's body, when I go, you good? Like anything? And even just asking a few people that, he probably is good, but just when someone gets asked, hey, you good? Just this like, oh, you know what? I am good. I'm good. And they're not, but they are because someone recognized, like, you just saw a dead baby as a police officer. I hear that a lot. It's like dead teenagers. I'm like, you're not supposed to see dead babies. What, are you good? They're like, yeah, I think so. Okay. Someone asked me, right? Like someone recognized it. And I just was always the one with all my buddies like that. And I got family who have now retired and so on and so forth, saying, you're not trained for that. And there's that macho mentality with cops, firefighters, and then you said males. You're not trained to be vulnerable, which is, okay. I think men have to have that level of masculinity sometimes, but I'm okay to sit down and cry with my 7 and 9-year-old if I have to cry with him too, so he can see it and be like, no, you saw, this makes me sad too, but now you're going to see me be a dad for you, right? Now you're going to see me protect you. So I've always been one to say to anyone, and Caitlin does, like, you just told me who you were. I'm like, oh my God, what are you? I'm sorry. Are you okay? That's a real thing. Let's not pass by that stuff. Because that's life. That's life to me, right? The things that he's gone through, Mike, and what some of his family stuff now. I'm like, are you good, man? I know some things going on, and I think it's important just to the elephant in the room or whatnot with the right people, to recognize it, just to say, you okay? What's up? You good? And I go back to the corporate side. I had I had a very, very affluent client who was tragically killed. And when I would talk to him out of the blue after a few years, he would just rip my head off. I'm like, for what? And during COVID, he would just go snap, 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 snap. And I'm like, man, are you good? Like, you're not, are you okay? And F this and F that and Trudeau and Bell. I'm like, yeah, what can I do to help you? And knowing nothing, but I don't know, in case they said, come down and take you for a coffee. Oh, let's do that. So I think it's really important. And I love asking people, are you good? Are you okay? What's going on? Whether it was a pandemic, or even right now, the economy itself, and that being my world with financial services, is you okay? Rent, mortgage, mortgage rates, all the stuff. It's a pretty crazy time. So I think that's what Untapped 60, Mike and I talk about, is just being able to connect with them people and saying, you're okay. We're here if you need us. We're happy to help. Here's a book. Here's some courses. What else can we do? And we'll see how it grows from there.
That's cool. Thanks, you guys. Thank you so much for being on Believe in People. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. It's been awesome.
This is great. Thank you. You're the best. You're both the best.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Okay, first of all, I don't know. Is that going to be a two-parter? It could be. It's amazing.
I know.
It's amazing. I was thinking about those old Chuck Norris jokes. About that, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, we got to rename those now. Like, I've never and you got like the finance bro with the heart. I mean, this pair, they're doing such extraordinary stuff. They're so amazing. I just want to know who's going to play them in the movie.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. Exactly. I mean, seriously, you couldn't imagine any other thing happening with Mike. And then you think of Jarrett and his experiences. But I have to say that it is the showing up. It's just the, take your shot, and if you're hesitant, think about Mike. I mean, if you're hesitant, think about, all the horrible things that happened, and yet he still fought for his life. And
yeah.
Wow. Yeah, they're inspiring. And Untapped 60 is going to be something that they'll look back and go, wow, we started from here and look where we're at. Yeah,
I think so too. I mean, even if just one person is like, I'm gonna do the slightly braver thing today, because are you kidding? If they can do this, I can say hello to somebody when I'm terrified to say hello to somebody. Like, I don't know.
That's
very
true.
Cool. It's very cool.
That's a great ending to this podcast. And if you're brave enough, we would recommend you subscribe to Believe in. If one person subscribed to Believe in People, that would be you. And but thank you everyone for listening in today.